once every year, once every other year around anniversary date, but your wages automatically increase, and that was to try and catch up with the private sector. And then also we negotiate COLAs, cost of living increases. Now, in the late 70s, early 80s, the cost of living increase did not match in any way the economic indicators. But as we began to become a little more stable, mid-80s and then into the 90s, they began to match, or in fact, in some cases, exceed what the inflationary rate was in any particular area in the state. So you had a situation where you had COLAs, which were designed to try and hold your own. If you were paid $1, you wanted to make sure that that dollar still bought as many bars of Ivory soap as it did when you first negotiated for the dollar. So if Ivory soap went up 3%, then you made $1.03 that next year. But then the fact of the matter is your step may have kicked in for another 5 cents or 8 cents, whatever it might be, so that it's $1.08 plus your 3%, and you began to compound the wages. And as a result, I don't have a chart with me, but as a result, I can tell you right now, after this period of time has evolved over the last several decades, the public jobs in Massachusetts, by and large, correlate with pay within the private sector. Now, there's some areas where you can point to key individuals, key persons, and the fact of the matter is perhaps they don't. But by and large, public employee jobs, I'm not talking about elected official, public employee jobs, by and large are very, very similar, comparable now to the private sector pay. That's a great thing. That's a fantastic thing. And I have to tell you that in a lot of cases, it had to do with gender discrimination. And one of the areas that certainly have come up greatly is clerical, which is something that we all can feel very, very good about. So this should be, I should now sit down and say, so it all ends well, that we wanted to be well, and that's the story. But the problem was that we built these benefits alongside trying to figure out how you boost the wages. So let me just give you some examples of benefits that I think now are coming to a forefront and going to become extremely difficult for us to meet the obligation and then also justify going into the future, especially when we realize that the people who are paying for these benefits have nothing near the type of benefit array that I'm about to talk about. We have wages, as I said, cost of living, steps, differentials. Differentials are another area that we built in. It might have been a night differential, might have been a mid-shift differential, might have been based on a type of hazard pay, whatever it was, but we built differentials into the wage scale as well. And then the benefits. Me or someone else?
You just speak.
Someone else? Is it recorded or okay? The next thing is
These what we're going.
It's another.
As far as the sickle cell patients or dads or living, where the cases are. I'm sorry. This is.
No,
At the Greater Boston Sickle Cell Association.
I took all the cell phones out.
I support that I send things such as
Barry, talk back to us.
I have no idea who that is.
That's not my voice either, though, right? So let me keep going here, and we'll see where we are. That's a perfect example of jamming, right there. So let's carry this to the next level now. Let's look.
is the key to a lot of things that they.
Let's look at benefits. Why don't we shut down our system and I can carry it without the audio, and we don't deal with that. All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been practicing as a ventriloquist, right? And obviously I've done pretty well. So let me try this. Benefits. First most important benefit that any of us would identify, assuming off to the side we rest assured we have Social Security, whether we do or not. But the first thing that you'd ask anyone is, what's your most important benefit? They'd say health care. They would say health care for themselves, their family. They might, if they're lucky, they might say health care, dental care, They might say health care, dental care, disability insurance, life insurance. The fact is that built into these employment benefit arrays are health insurance, single, double, families, disability insurance in many cases, as well as life insurance. And the fact of the matter is that depending on what the split is, in many cases it's far more than the private sector allows. There are 90-10 splits. Government pays 90%, employee pays 10%. There are 75-25s, you name the percentage, and then it goes down. The least amount that a governmental employment unit contributes to the health insurance category is 50%. As we know, health insurance has begun to spike. Disability insurance has begun to spike. It all has to be paid for. So I want you to check that column off, health insurance. Now, pension. Pension is a matter, again, our employees are covered by a pension system. It is a self-funded pension system. Employees, by and large, are paying between 8% and 11.5%, just under 12% for their pensions. The fact of the matter is you can run the numbers at any given time, and to determine whether or not you're better off under a public pension system than you are a Social Security system. What you'll find is that the public system, especially in Massachusetts, is tilted in a far more lucrative way towards benefits, towards employees once they hit 25 to 30 years, once they've met their minimum age, or their normal actuarial age as far as retirement goes. So it's another system that we heavily favored in the favor of the public employee, extremely expensive, and I'll finish this up talking about how pensions are really the next major freight train coming down the pipe. As far as those two benefits go, insurance and pension, we should feel pretty good about this, and I should be able to sit down right now and say, well, we built it and it's a little top heavy, but we'll work it out and figure out how to get by. But the problem was we did not stop at that. And any given day, any given good faith bargaining situation, people got together and tried to figure out a way, how do we compensate these career employees for the great job that they do? And these are some of the ways that we did it. Holidays. Everyone understands holidays. By and large, you're talking about a 12 to 13 path holiday. There are very few very few private entities now that have the holiday list that the public employees have. Sick leave. Sick leave, by and large, is something, it varies from contract to contract, from unit to unit, but by and large, you're talking about a day and a quarter, a day and a half, a month. Sick leave also is something that's a fantastic benefit, but the problem is that in many contracts, you are able to accumulate them, which is great. God forbid you ever got sick, that's fine, but the other problem is you can cash them in at the end. So if you're sick, we're going to pay you, stay home. If you're not sick and you add them all up, we're going to pay you when it's time to leave. So what we built, and I know there was a little bit of a reference to the banks, but what we built is a very, very interesting little golden parachute for people who don't use their sick leave. And then we also did something that was trying to get people not to use their sick leave, which is come up with sick leave incentive bonus plans. So that if I didn't use my sick leave in a certain year, even though I was going to be paid back at the end of my career, in whatever proportion it might be, 1/2 or 2/3 to the number of sick days I accumulated, based on the last wage that I had at the time I retired. The fact of the matter is I also got paid during the course of each year for not using my sick days, and the theory that it's far less disruptive to have people working than trying to replace them or going with overtime. So you have sick leave, you have sick leave buyback, and you have sick leave incentive. Then you also have personal days. Well, what's the difference between a sick leave day and a personal day? Well, a personal day was if you're not sick and you need time to do something specifically of a personal nature with your family, whatever it might be, they're bargained out. That may be anywhere from 1 to 3 days, depending on the contract. And if you use your personal days, it doesn't count against using sick days to thwart your idea of getting back a sick leave incentive. for not using sick days. So everything is built in a way that puts a premium on paying the employee for not using sick days. You can use your personal days, but at the end of the day, you're going to be paid all your sick days that you accumulate just the same when you retire. Then you look at it from the standpoint of vacation. And what we tried to do was load up vacation, because the fact of the matter was, if you're not being paid the same as in the private sector, then let's make sure that you get to 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or in some cases even 5 weeks, because we want to reward you, but we can't reward you with money. So what we'll reward you is with vacation days. So you put that all together, that is an awful lot of time that employees, God forbid if they're sick, but if they're not sick, an awful lot of time that they're out. When they're out, there may be essential services, which bangs up overtime because you have to fill those services. Then what we want to do is, if we ask you to buy special clothes, we're going to give you a clothing allowance that's bargained for. And then if the clothes are the kind of clothes that are going to really be possibly damaged, we're going to give you a replacement clothing allowance during the course of the year. Or we're going to allow you to buy X number of shirts, X number of uniforms, whatever it might be during the course of a period. And then the other thing that we did in order to help compensate was the clothes have to be cleaned, so we're going to give you a cleaning allowance to make sure that when you come to work, you are also able to clean the clothes. The other thing is we want people who are well educated, trained, so we built in educational allowances, training allowances, anything to do, advanced degrees, whatever it might be, anything to make sure we had the best possible employee. And then what we did, obviously, if someone had a tragedy in their family, rather than have them tap into their sick days or their personal days, we built in a separate component for bereavement leave. And then in some cases, if we had a situation where family medical leave would kick in some cases it would pay family medical leave. So you go and you begin adding up all the different incentives, all the different benefits that were looked at as benefits that, well, it's not going to cost money, it may cost some time, it may mean that we can't deliver a service on any given day, but they were all there and all begun to stockpile. And what I found out when we hit our 9 seat cuts this past year as the mayor was that every single employee had a certain amount of money that if we had to lay them off, it represented their salary and their wages for that particular, their salary and their benefits for that particular year. So fully loaded. So a fully loaded individual who made $50,000 a year, fully loaded may have cost about $82,000, about 32 grand in extra costs. So really that cost to the taxpayer, that cost as far as value goes is $82,000, not $50,000. Well, that was fine, so we figured it's $82,000 that we actually are getting the getting the savings on. The problem was that when you went to lay someone off, you found out that there were unfunded liabilities. We'll start first with unemployment. Obviously, person's entitled to unemployment. Then a period of time for sick leave, and obviously you want to do that. But then you began to tabulate your longevity pay. You began to tabulate your sick leave buyback. You began to tabulate any bonus that was still out there for sick leave, any bonus, any comp time that had been accumulated because you were trying to save money and offer people hours. And before you knew it, in order to lay one person off, you had to lay off about 1.8 person. So in order to lay off 220 people, it became very clear we were going to lay off close to 400 people in order to fill a gap because of this just below the surface cost of each employee. Now that's an interesting academic exercise that needed to be done in order to balance a budget because we can't run in a deficit situation. So it became a very apparent issue that needed to be resolved is to actually what are we spending per employee and what kind of unfunded liability have we built up for each employee. The real problem was when you began doing the calculations was you realize that we are spending in a deficit because we are carrying these unfunded liabilities for each employee year after year after year, and it's all going to come home and as something that is owed to each of these employees that the government's going to have to pay. Now, when you correlate that with the private sector now, it is very clear that the public sector jobs pay far greater and have a full carrying cost that's far greater than the public sector. So it is only a matter of time before things have to become either recalibrated, put back into proportion, or before your public sector employee, your taxpayers, look at it and say, God bless you, let me make sure I understand this now. They make the same, and they have benefits that I've never heard of, can't even calculate, can't imagine that I'd ever have in my workplace, and we're paying for it, and I'm beginning to wonder why, taxes are going up, costs are going up, and as they begin to shrink, the people power pool, services are going down. So the answer to this, I think, in a nutshell right now, is that this great recession, the worst recession that we've ever seen, the worst since the Great Depression, is a time to sit down and figure out how will we actually pay these bills over the next several years and then decades to come. And isn't it time that we sit down and have a very, very realistic discussion with the unions about how do we lead to sustain these jobs, sustain the services that people expect in a way that still provides a great job, a great living wage, great benefits, but is more proportional to the population that actually is being served and paying for it? Or do we stand on an island as we continue to cut the number of people that we have, and eventually realize that everything ends up being outserved other than the collection of the money or the RFPs for procurement to find out who's going to do the work? And eventually we may end up having to outservice that if we don't get smart about building a model that we can pay for. Now I'll give you a quick example. Health insurance is on a absolutely death corkscrew spiral as it is now up. And unless we get either by way of a national health insurance plan that begins to actually curtail the amount that the costs for health insurance or the services itself, or unless we sit down and figure out a way to build a health insurance plan that covers everyone in Massachusetts that brings down costs, health insurance as we know it is not going to be affordable in a way that will allow for the employment of the numbers that we have right now in the public sector. You will end up laying off people to pay for health insurance for the few. The pension plan. The pension plan as it stands right now, New Bedford's a perfect example, and I'll tell you a very quick little story. About 3 years ago, sitting in an MMA meeting, I was tugging at the sleeve of another mayor and saying, hey, I got a major problem in my unfunded liability and pension in New Bedford. Now, I've represented many joint employer union plans over the years. I thought I understood pretty well how they worked. I thought I understood the federal bailout program for pension plans. I thought I understood actuarial tables and how it all fits together. But I also never realized when I was looking at the public health, the public pension plans, that they were based on a 20-year model as well, and that they have been in a situation where they've been severely underfunded in many cities around the state, and then particularly in New Bedford. I had a plan that is approximately 50% funded, and meets its actuarial projection each year of about 7% interest, but about 50% funded. And it's been traditionally underfunded and traditionally be allowed to be underfunded. And then the treasurer came out with a formula that said if you are underfunded and you don't meet your actuarial investment projection, we will come in and take over your plan. And I looked at it and I said, meeting the actuarial projection is not the key indicator here. It's the unfunded liability that's the key indicator. That's the thing that people should focus on. So I tugged on the mayor's, I don't know if it may have been his leg, I don't even remember now, and said, hey, how are you doing with your pension plan? He said, oh, we're pretty good. You're according to Bedford, you're one of about six plans in the state that's unfunded. I don't think you're going to see much relief on this. And I said, well, we're going to have to, because New Bedford, when I took office, was paying $17 million into its plan, and we're now up to $24 million in 4 years. And in 4 years from now, it goes up to $40 million. So if you think 9 seat cuts are a problem, imagine all of a sudden taking that slice of your pension, slice of your budget, and enlarging it for a pension to that degree, more than doubling it over a 10-year period. So I said, well, what are we going to do on this issue? They said, don't worry about it, it's a New Bedford issue, you'll have to deal with it. I said, okay, fine. 3 years later, after the great crash, everyone's unfunded. And now all of a sudden this is a major issue and everybody's looking at it. What I would offer is simply this, that a 20-year industrial actuarial table for fully funded pension plans is absolutely ridiculous, makes no sense whatsoever, doesn't fit into a governmental mode. And that people have to start getting out from under the idea that, well, a pension plan, it's just like the UAW plan, it's just like a longshoreman plan, it's like any public union defined benefit plan. As long as that theory was, and we used to scoff at that, but now we've seen the wisdom perhaps in it with the collapse of of the major manufacturers. But that particular model was based on the fact that doomsday approach. You better fund it within a 20-year period because who knows what may happen. But a municipality, if we take that approach, it seems to me that we are not giving full faith in the idea that the United States is going to be a little bit more resilient than that. It is it's an artificial, I think, formula. It needs to be completely reworked. We need to figure out how do you fund the pension obligations we have now, but then how do you build a pension plan that is self-sustaining, so that you don't have the unfunded liability, so that you're not basing it on a 7 to 9% return each year. When's the last time anyone in this room got a 7 to 9% return? Probably about a decade and a half ago, maybe. The fact of the matter is it's based on false assumptions. Any work that's being done now on trying to figure out how to recalibrate the pension plan for the state or the localities loses sight of the fact that it's being used, the numbers are being used are pre-collapse numbers. Every plan would have to have an actuarial study and get off the idea that we're doing it for a 20-year period. The legislature right now has said, we tell you what we'll do. What we're going to do is elongate it we'll hold our thumb up, about a third more. So maybe an extra 7 to 10 years. Well, the reason for that is because we took in assets about a third hit with the collapse. So basically what you're doing, you're not doing anything to help cash flow in any city that has an unfunded liability. Basically what you're doing is building in a period of time to replenish the money that was lost in the market. So my gut feeling on this is you sit down and do the math. If this was your business, if this was your house, if you were at your kitchen table, you sit down with a calculator with your significant other, your spouse, your best friend, your kids, you sit down and figure out revenue coming in, costs that have been incurred, obligations that you've committed to. You look at this, you will realize unless we move very quickly, you're not going to be sitting in your house very long. And that's where we are at this point. I don't know that there's more 9C cuts coming. If there are, New Bedford will fight their way through them. New Bedford is one of the few cities in the state that met its pre-recession growth projections through the recession and beat them. So I'm not here to say, open up my pants pocket and show you a hole in it. We're doing real well. New Bedford is about as strong as it's ever been, and we feel very, very bullish about southeastern Mass and growth. But I know that I am dealing with a system right now that is hell-bent on collapse if we don't get control of it in a hurry. And that's what I would tell you as someone who started. Never thought I'd run for anything. Have done it. It's been very interesting. I've learned a heck of a lot. I'll be a much better lawyer when I'm done. But the fact of the matter is that if we don't get serious about the financing of our state government, the financing of our local governments, government will not exist as we know it. Last couple of things, 2 more points quickly. 2 more points quickly is this. How do you get out of this? Full employment. Full employment means economic stimulus money to create jobs. The formula should be how many jobs are we creating? Let's see them. Where's the lunch bucket? Who's doing the work? What is it building? That's extremely important. That will help greatly. The other thing is services that the government provides now. We can, if we look at it from a totality of circumstance standpoint, we can change the way we provide services. The idea that I have the great police force, they arrest someone, we get a conviction, we put them at the House of Corrections instead of the House of Education, is a mistake. Because when they get out, we're back chasing them again. That's an awful lot of money that we're spending for no good purpose, and it's not adding in any way to the social fabric of our society. The other thing is, the idea that I have people running around cleaning up, around the city, picking up trash, picking up debris, whatever it might be. We need to change the way the next generation, the generations after that, think about their environment, expect people to clean up after them. It seems to me an awful lot of this stuff, some of the things the government does, we should be able to do for ourselves and not have not have the further burden. As far as education goes, just a quick plug, I'll say this now. What was said by Tom, I know exactly to be true as far as the incentive pay for teachers. I have been working, teachers are saying we don't want to really do that, we don't think it's appropriate. God bless them. I went in and said let's turn it into a scholarship fund or a teaching, professional teaching fund, whatever it might be. The people who want to fund it say no, the teachers have to take it as a bonus. That is ideological back and forth tongue war, which makes no sense. You want to put $100 for a bonus, and I say let's put it in a scholarship fund. It seems to me everyone should come together pretty quick on that. That's for the students. Last thing I will say is, as I'm walking out, I want everyone to start thinking about MCAS. God bless MCAS, I'm all for it. We need an MCAS diploma and we need a general diploma. There is now about 25,000 kids in this state who did everything that everyone in this room pre-MCAS did to get a high school diploma, who we are going to support because they don't have a diploma. Give them a high school diploma. Half of them will be here taking courses. Half of them will be the great leaders. The other half will be just like us. But the fact of the matter is we are putting a tremendous weight on society by trying to pound round pegs in square holes and square pegs in round holes to no end for no good. It doesn't even make any sense. Colleges don't, you apply to Northeastern, they don't get your MCAS scores. They don't even know if you took the MCAS. If you go to Bishop Stang, you can get a scholarship at UMass Amherst before a kid who went to New Bedford High and passed the MCAS. It is a complete folly. It makes no sense. 13 years of school, you passed the curriculum, you did what I did, you did what all of you did. Give the kid a high school diploma, see what happens next. So that's what I would say.
We're running a little bit late, and I think what we'll do is take a 5-minute break.